when you look at all the science behind cancer, they bring in mind bodies, diet, detoxification. I mean, they're very subtle, but over the years, I've found these different modalities that actually address disease. And when you think about the tumor, imagine it like the check engine light in your car. That's how I think of it. When it comes on, you don't take a hammer and beat the dash until the check engine light goes out. You take your car to the garage and find out what's wrong.
Cancer, a disease that every one of us has either personal experience or someone we love. So, what can you do about it? Hi, this is Dr. Mercola helping you take control of your health. And today we are joined by Annie Brandt, who is a cancer survivor herself. And also, as a result of that experience, has developed a really interesting platform for support structures to give you anyone actually who is challenged with cancer as a disease to have access to resources to overcome that challenge. So welcome and thank you for joining us, Annie.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Mercola. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, we first met late last year at Dr. Cowden's conference in Orlando, and you were inviting me to speak at one of your events, and which is actually coming up, which is the Best Answers for Cancer, a international cancer conference that you have been coordinator for, I think, the last 10 years or so. And unfortunately, my schedule won't allow me to attend, but it is a great event that we're going to have a lot of speakers at. So why don't we talk about, well, before we discuss that, I think I just want to mention that from my perspective, the most foundational strategy that you could deploy would be to get your diet right. And we talk a lot about on the side, of course, and that's my passion. And I got reignited in that, and after understanding that cancer is not a genetic disease, but a metabolic disease, primarily a mitochondrial metabolic disease, that I wrote the book Fat for Fuel, which will be out in May. So I think that's the first step. But clearly, diet alone for most people is not going to solve the cancer riddle. It'll help. It'll probably prevent it for most people, but it won't solve it if you already have cancer. And that's where your resources come in. They really are a great collaborative addition to a healthy diet, which I outlined in Fat for Fuel coming up. So I guess why don't you give us your framework and perspective on how you started the Best Answers for Cancer?
Okay, thank you. I actually started backwards. So I was going through cancer, and it was they gave me three months to live in 2001, and I decided, well, if I was going to go in 3 months, I was going to go as healthy as I could and as close to the way God made me as I could. So I refused surgery, high dose chemo, and radiation, and instead tried to make my body strong and detox it. And I started first with diet, but I'll come back to that. The way the foundation started was I kind of made a promise to myself that if, in fact, I lived doing all these natural, healthy things, that I would find a way to help people realize there were all these options. So that's why I started the foundation.
Great. And that's been going on long for how long now?
Well, we really started in 2004, but we didn't become a 501c3 until 2006.
All right, so about
So,
10 years or so. And maybe you can elaborate on the services that that group or foundation provides.
sure. Yeah, we are a hybrid nonprofit, the only one I know of, in that we service two disparate groups. We service the physicians arena, and we service patients of cancer and chronic disease. We're not just cancer, but seeing that that's the latest stats are 1 out of 3 women and 1 out of 2 men will experience cancer in their lifetime. We felt that was a great focus.
And those
So,
are old stats. We're going to 1 to 2 for both sexes,
yeah,
and
I
or
know, I
greater.
know. Yes, well, I think it was 1 to 6 when I was diagnosed. So we're going down fast.
Hmm. So, and you also put on this conference that has many international experts that you coordinate to give presentations to not only other professionals but patients who are challenged with this and seeking an alternative to the conventional paradigm, which interestingly, and I confirmed with you when I was at the Orlando conference, it was when I first learned about it. Many people were aware of this part of myself, but I was astonished. I basically fell off my chair. Actually, I don't sit in a chair anymore, hardly, unless I'm traveling, but I basically fell off the platform I'm standing on when I found out that oncology is the only specialty in medicine that is allowed, and may I say encouraged, to sell the drugs to their cancer patients and added enormous profits. I think the profit is well over 50%, and you're more familiar with this than I am, so you can perhaps expand on it. But it is just incredible. These are not just any drugs. These are not like anti-ulcer drugs. These are the most, for the most part, as a general category, the most expensive medications in all of the medicines in all of healthcare. Uh,
Yes, that's very true. I was shocked myself. I found this out years ago that, and the only reason I found out was because I got very friendly with my oncologist. But almost all oncologists, if they're in a hospital setting or a large clinic setting, get a commission for the amount of drugs and chemo they sell.
yes, indeed. So with that type of incentive, it is just nearly impossible to imagine them actively seeking any other alternative. I mean, any other alternative, they're not going to get this type of commission. So, and percentage of profit. So their income will go down dramatically if they seek to integrate some of these alternative strategies.
And it's not just that, Dr. Mercola. That is a big incentive, financial for a lot of people. But they're also constricted by the very oncology board that they're
Mhm.
members of, and it's a you must. They get a lot of pressure from the pharmaceutical companies to do the right thing. I think many of them think they are doing the right thing,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, it's multifaceted. It's a multifaceted situation.
Yeah, it's a clever strategy that the drug companies have adopted, and that is to establish a standard of care, which is established by essentially people that they support and subsidize that are high up in the hierarchy, so that they can essentially set these parameters. And if you go against the established standard of care, you are susceptible to being reprimanded and having your license, well, either your license reprimanded or even taken away if it's
Mhm.
if a significant switch from that. And I'm reminded of Dr. Tim Noakes, who's a South African physician, not really practicing, but still has a medical license. And literally, and he established the prominence of low carb, high fat diets in South Africa, and literally tweeted to a pregnant patient that she should consider switching her child to a higher fat diet. And as a result, the president of a dietitian, submitted a request to their medical board and had to go through this expensive and multi-year trial just to keep his license. I mean, that's just one example. It's obviously a little different in cancer, but it's just how they control this. And then in that case, it wasn't the drug industry, it was the food industry that was subsidizing this whole process.
Yeah, we have a lot against us when you're in the natural realm, because you can't really make money on it if you're a conglomerate. So
Sure. So now one of your principles is that treating the tumor is not enough. So why, and you have a whole variety of different options that you address to support your body's systems, immune systems and others, to really normalize and maximize your biological strategies to uh, recover your health. So why don't you discuss that approach?
yeah, yes, thank you. I came to the conclusion that the tumor was just a messenger. When you look at the tumor itself and think of it's a form, it's um, a substance that forms around disease cells. And where do the disease cells come from? When you look at all the science behind cancer, they bring in mind bodies, diet, detoxification. I mean, they're very subtle, but over the years, I've found these different modalities that actually address disease. And when you think about the tumor, imagine it like the check engine light in your car. That's how I think of it. when it comes on, you don't take a hammer and beat the dash until the check engine light goes out. You take your car to the garage and find out what's wrong. Well, we don't do that. We want to get rid of the tumor as soon as possible. We want to beat the dash until the light goes out. And then we don't look at the what fed it, what created it. And that's why I think cancer, a lot of reasons why cancer keeps recurring in certain people, they haven't addressed all of the issues that are feeding it. So when you look at what could be feeding it, you have to consider your whole life. You have to consider the people around you, your job, stress, your environment, what you eat, how you think, believe it or not, how you think. Um, uh, are you getting enough rest and exercise and sunshine? I know you wrote a great article a while back about sunshine and vitamin D, and it was brilliant. And that kind of thing needs to come out more. It's not known.
Well, it's not just vitamin D, and that's the common misperception. It's actually exposure to full spectrum sunlight, which of course includes the UVB that causes, when it hits your unclothed skin, causes that to convert to the cholesterol to convert to vitamin D, but also the infrared, which is about 50% of the energy in sunlight. It has incredible biological benefits, including stimulating certain um, electron transport chain proteins to produce more ATP and then to structure your water and increase your cellular energy. So it's profound, and it's just that's one of my new missions, is to educate people about this, because it's just such an ignored aspect of medicine, even though literally a century ago it was relatively common knowledge, and there were large numbers of physicians who incorporated these modalities. But when the pharmaceutical companies came in and shifted the emphasis to a drug-based model, we abandoned these, and now virtually no one is aware of the benefits of therapeutic sun application.
Yeah, well, I listened to you in Orlando talk about that, and since then I've been out in the sun every noon or early afternoon for
Mhm.
20 to 30 minutes. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Now, as we're recording this, it's the winter, so that's a good strategy in the winter. In the summer, for most of us, especially here in Texas and me in Florida, that you do not want to be out at noon. It's too much sunshine. So you have to optimize the exposure. So depending on your environment and location.
Right. Yep.
So now another part of your strategies that you recommend in your book um, is the detox. So
Mm.
maybe you can discuss that for a moment.
Yeah, I think when detox has gotten a little popular in the last 10 years, but I think when people think of detox, they think mostly physical detox the body. But what they're missing is that the toxins are all through our lives. Again, if you think about it, there's something in your life that's creating and feeding this cancer. You have to look at the whole thing. So if you think about the way we think, if most cancer patients don't think they're worth it. So that is a toxic thought. So you have to detox the mind. You have to detox the spirit, the emotions. Most cancer patients feel trapped. So you have to detox every part of your life, and then don't forget the environment. You need an air purifier to clear the air, clean the air. You need water purifiers to clean the water. Get rid of your toxic chemicals under the sink. I mean, you've really got to do a lifestyle detox.
Yeah, so it's just like your approach to not focusing on the tumor, you've got to focus on the foundational causes that contribute to that. And so rather than removing them, which is still an important part of the process, I'm a really big fan of sauna therapy. And there's three types of saunas. One is traditional, the other is far infrared, and the other is near infrared. And there's a physician, Lawrence Wilson, who wrote a book on sauna therapy that really discusses the importance of near infrared with heat lamps. And he has details on how to construct a sauna for like $100, maybe a few hundred if you want to get fancy, but certainly far less than 1,000. And that may be the best type of sauna therapy, because it's near infrared, which you don't get in almost all far infrared saunas, is literally probably some of the most important biological frequencies that you're exposed to. So that, and then avoiding them, would be a good strategy. But you had mentioned to detox your thought process. So you have some interesting strategies in your book. Why don't you discuss some of those?
Well, okay, so we can go to therapists. We can do a lot of work with a therapist on how we think, but there are thoughts that are embedded in our fibers, in our cells, and they're deep rooted from a lot of times from childhood. So how do you get rid of those? You actually got to tap into the roots, the meridian. Acupuncture can move the chi, but you can't actually redirect or change the energy. You can with therapies like EFT, emotional freedom technique, EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprogramming, which basically
A mouthful.
yeah, it basically balances the left and right brain and gets rid of the dysfunction, your disease in whatever part of the brain that is. Those are two really, really powerful ones. Meditation helps, visualization, positive affirmations. I had positive affirmations everywhere, in my car, in the kitchen, in the bathroom. I mean, they were everywhere. And but it works. The body will listen, and the mind will listen if you tell it enough times.
Yes, and the stress is a big issue. There's no question
Mm.
about it, and especially for most diseases. In my experience, typically cancers and autoimmune diseases, it's almost always there. The EFT you refer to is one that I focused on when I was seeing patients, and really it seemed nothing closer to magic. And in many cases, it was just literally a few minutes of tapping by an experienced clinician who understood how to tap, not someone's tapping on themselves. The problem resolved, and it was literally close to a miracle. So, and there are many, many other variants. There's probably dozens, if not hundreds, of variants of EFT, and then EMDR is an earlier one. Not sure exactly when it started, but it also is effective. It's just a little more cumbersome to administer. But they work. They're really effective, and I don't think anyone really understands the exact mechanism, but we don't have to get the benefits. So it's a really good strategy.
Yes, I agree.
So the other component is the immune system. So why don't you discuss some your perspective on that?
Sure. And this is one that I thought of almost in the beginning, because I was curious as to how the cancer could just come on so fast. And I had read about the immune system being capable of keeping disease at bay. And so I reasoned that if my disease wasn't at bay, then there was something going on with my immune system. So back in the day, 2001, 2002, you heard a lot about boosting the immune system. But I was diagnosed in 1992 with a dysfunctional immune syndrome. So I kind of didn't want to do just boosting. I wanted to find out what's going on. It's very difficult. These days, we do have oncoimmunologists who can actually look at your immune system and tell you if it's out of balance and which way it's out of balance and what to do. But there are some general things you can just start out with to just try and boost it and regulate it. And that's, acupuncture helps, laughter, endorphins. So endorphins can even be knitting. I didn't know that. You can knit and make endorphins. Um, there are things that you can do to boost the immune system. Laughter's really hard when you've got cancer and when it's a death diagnosis of, very close to your face. But you have to keep going. You have to find it, because this is how you fix the imbalances and the diseases in your life.
Sure, and there's three strategies that come up to the top of my mind initially when you think about immune system and simple strategies that you can use. One would, of course, be sunshine.
Mhm.
Or if you don't have access to the winter, you can swallow oral vitamin D. Now, nowhere near as good, but it'll work. And that will improve your immune system, no question about it. The other is improving your microbiome, which goes back to paying attention to your diet. This Fat for Fuel book that I just wrote, it goes into great detail, and we have a lot of information on the site. So that the microbiome you have has enormous influence over the quality of your immune function. And then last, I'd like you to discuss is the endocannabinoid system, how the plants, natural plants like hemp and marijuana, medical marijuana, can be used to stimulate that system and improve your immune function. So I don't recall if you discussed that in your book specifically, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on it.
No, I did discuss it, but not in a great deal of detail, because there's a lot of mystery out there around medical
Mhm.
cannabis, and it's a subject area that I've recently been looking, the last couple of years, been looking into more deeply. And I just found a group called United Patients Group, and they're another 501c3, and their only mission is to make sense of what's out there, how it really works, and then educate people. And I know that medical cannabis, if there is a definite ratio of THC to CBD for each type of disease, which I didn't know until about 2 years ago. So just taking one portion of it isn't as effective as having the actual correct proportion. So the what the my understanding is so far is that the medical cannabis in the right proportion can regulate, not just boost, but regulate the immune system. And it actually, and going back to diet, I almost consider medical cannabis part of a diet because it does nourish and detox and
Well,
destroy.
it is a food. Sadly, in most states, it's illegal to grow. If it was legal to grow where I live, I can assure you, because with my interest in regenerative agriculture and understanding of soil health, I would grow some magnificent plants. But unfortunately, it's illegal where I live, so I wouldn't do it. But if I could, I would grow it, and I would probably consume it every day. And when you consume it raw, many people don't realize that there's really not a psychoactive component in there. So you
Exactly.
don't get high. You just normalize your biological systems.
Yeah, and that's the THCA. That's the
Hmm.
raw and hopefully organic. And CBD doesn't matter, but the THCA is non-hallucinogenic.
Well,
However,
not hallucinogenics,
I mean,
just
yeah,
psychoactive.
psychoactive. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not LSD, well,
Right.
or
So,
mushrooms.
yes, non-psychoactive. Oh my goodness. So the thing is, though, some people don't know that, and so they'll take their THCA and put it in their coffee, or their tea, hot tea, and therefore they activate the
The heat
THC.
will activate it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but it's a great system for those of you who do live in states where you can grow it legally and don't have to pay an arm and a leg. You can do that and put it in your smoothie. I mean, if I could do it, I would. It's a sad deletion from my smoothie ingredients, but maybe someday that will be legal where I live. So,
Well, that's one of the things we're trying to do, Dr. Mercola, with the foundation is we're trying to protect the rights of patients and doctors to use natural substances to help people. And so I just finished writing another study. We've got an institutional review board that is overseeing some of our studies, and any doctor participating in those studies can, treat patients with the products safely. So we're looking at all kinds of options there to help get different options out into the market.
okay, good. That's a good thing. So, what other lifestyle modifications do you advocate? Exercise would be one I could think of, which also improves the immune system done properly. Of course, if you overdo it, it can trash your immune system, but done properly, it's a great benefit.
Yes. So exercise, proper amount of rest. There actually is a study showing exactly how much rest you should have based on your age group. Um,
And what are those ranges? Do you remember?
well, I know that yeah, up to let's see, 30 to 64 is
Mhm.
7 minimum and 9 maximum.
Yeah,
So
there's a sweet spot. It's a Goldilocks dose because too much sleep could be every bit as problematic as too little.
right. Another big thing about lifestyle changes this is one of the most difficult things to do for everybody, every patient. You have to minimize toxic relationships, negative relationships. Your life should be as positive as possible. Otherwise you're just not going to be happy here. It's kind of like, why live if you're not happy living? So I advocate looking at everything in your life, making sure it's as positive as possible. You're getting the sleep, you're getting the sunshine, you're getting the right uh, support groups. You've got loving touch from friends and animals, and it's just, I guess lifestyle to me is like, and it's also, for me, it was the most fun I had because I literally remade my life. How many chances do you have in your lifetime to remake yourself? And this is not only permission, this is encouragement to remake your life. And then so it's really empowering, very joyful. It's hard, getting rid of the negative relationships and stress, but you feel so much better that it's good.
Yes, and one of the strategies if you're going to be treating cancer, and it's something that I never really did much as a clinician because I was just so confused by the whole variety of different options, and of course the real focus on regulatory agencies to target and really seek to vilify or discredit anyone who is using these strategies. So you've got, I'm really, even today that still exists. So I am grateful for the clinicians who are courageous enough to go out there. But nevertheless, it's not just one therapy. Now, everything we talked about will help. But typically, if you have an advanced form, specifically metastasized, where these targeted cancer cells, these circulating cancer cells, uh, are going around, that you need some multiple strategies to do it. And this is one of the reasons why most every conventional therapy is not that useful, or is useful, but it's not definitive, because it doesn't really ever address these circulating cancer cells. So yeah, you can get rid of the primary mass, but you're still not addressing the ones that are floating around your bloodstream, and those are the ones that kill 97% of the people.
Yeah, the actually the that's so true, and people don't get it. You know, the conventional medicine doesn't have any way to stop the metastases or to treat the metastatic stem cells. And it's this metastatic stem cells that kill. And the way one scientist described it to me is, when you remove a tumor or you do any surgery on a cancer, the body gets very helpful and says, "Oh my goodness, we've lost some of those cancer cells." So its job is to replace the cells. It doesn't think about this as a bad cell. So instead of replacing it with regular cancer cells, it replaces it with stem cells, saying, "Okay, we'll just make it stronger since this last one didn't last." And so the stem cells are what conventional medicine cannot address that I know
Hmm.
of. Alternative medicine can. You know,
Yes, very effectively.
yeah, there's berberine, there's metformin,
Now,
which is, go ahead.
yeah, berberine and metformin are really similar.
Hmm.
I like berberine a lot better because it's not a drug. Metformin as a drug is probably one of the safer ones, and millions of people have been on it with relatively few side effects. Used for type 2 diabetes, it's an oral hypoglycemic, but berberine is something I take every day. I just love berberine. It has so many benefits and uses, and its mechanism of action is pretty similar to metformin. And I would encourage anyone who's taking metformin for either control of type 2 diabetes or for longevity benefits, because a lot of people take it for that, to stop it and switch over to berberine.
Yes, I agree. I prefer natural substances over medications. In fact, I'm taking zero medications. And but berberine works, sulforaphane, which is all the cruciferous vegetables, curcumin,
Broccoli sprouts,
broccoli sprouts. There's
glucoraphanin, and myrosinase.
that's right. There's a lot of them. So, and they all work against stem cells. So, and I encourage people to, if they have active cancer or have had cancer, to keep cancer on its toes by switching things around. So, for instance, I take SEACT. It's a blood purifier, anti-cancer combination of herbs. I
Yeah,
take
and
that.
a good one in there is burdock root.
Yep.
That's in there, and I think Paudiarca, if I'm not mistaken, is in.
Burdock. It's burdock, um, rhubarb, slippery elm, and sheep sorrel. And sheep sorrel is
Okay,
anti-cancer. The 8 herb formula is the one with, I believe, with
Paudiarca.
yeah, I think so.
I love
But that.
Paudiarca because it has this substrate called beta-lactone, which is
Mhm.
a powerful way to increase NAD plus intracellularly, which is an important component of improving mitochondrial ATP production. So
Oh,
I
I
have,
did not know that.
yeah, I have Paudiarco about a teaspoon a day.
Oh, okay, I'll remember that.
Yeah.
You just gave me a fact for my revision. Thank you.
Yeah, it's from the inner bark, not the outer bark, the inner bark, and finely ground. It's very neutral. There's no bitter taste. Like berberine, you have to take in a pill. That is like one of the most bitter substances around is berberine. You just do not want to swallow, put that on your tongue.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, I'm just greatly encouraged that there's all those options for, especially for metastatic cancer. So,
Yeah, so why don't we just talk about some of them? And I can think of a few, like intravenous vitamin C, which I didn't really fully appreciate until relatively recently, that converts to hydrogen peroxide, which is toxic to cancer cells. So it's not just the diet and the exercise and everything you talked about, but it's these targeted, really focused interventions to just decimate not only the cancer, the tumor, but the cells, cancer stem cells. So,
yes.
IV vitamin C. Why don't you talk about a few of the others, like IPT, insulin
Okay.
potentiated therapy?
Yeah. So, IPT was my kicker. For a year, I did all, you know, the SACT, all natural substances, berberine, that found back then. And after a year, I still had cancerous tumors. but I was somewhat shrunk and I was better. So I went back to the computer because I still had cancer and started looking around and I saw IPT. And IPT to me just is I had this brain so I was like, oh, it's a Trojan horse. It
Mhm.
actually delivers low doses of chemo or other medicines to the disease cell only. So it's an elegant delivery mechanism. That's probably my favorite because it works so well on me. I just watch the tumors shrink and disappear. There's also the high dose vitamin C, as you brought up. Our latest study that we just got approval for is high dose C with artesunate. And so artesunate is an IV derivative of artemisinin, and artemisinin is a Chinese herb that has been shown to kill cancer with very little side effect.
It's
So
wormwood, and it's a very
yeah,
effective anti-parasite agent too.
yeah. So and that's one thing I learned early on is inflammation, viruses, bacteria, and I lost the last one.
The
Anyway,
parasites?
maybe it's the parasites. Yeah, those are the four things that cancer feeds on. Feeds on in those has those in heavy environments in those
Well,
areas.
in addressing the inflammation, you have a very nice, one of the better descriptions, comprehensive descriptions of enzyme therapy, systemic enzyme therapy, not swallowing enzymes for digesting food, which has its benefits, but this is taken on an empty stomach, and you really discuss all it, not yeah, the broad range of ones, and actually based on your description, I integrated a few more of them into my own personal protocol, not because I have cancer, but I just think it's a good idea because not only does it treat cancer, but it treats fibrinogen levels, which tend to get elevated with age and stiffen your arteries.
Yes, I love Wellbenzyme. So,
Hmm.
um, but that's another thing. The doctor that I first went to taught me about switching things around. He said cancer builds immunities, and so I thought, well, that's right. Cancer builds immunities to things like chemo, so and radiation. So I need to, keep it on its toes and switch things around. So I had a chart actually for all my therapies, and it was calendar based, and I would say start this here, stop this here,
Hmm.
and so I could look at the calendar any day and see what I was doing. And of course, you don't switch every day, but if you did SEAC T for like 4 weeks, then you do red clover stellinja for 2, then you do SEAC for 5, red clover stellinja for 6. I mean, just we keep switching it around. So
Yeah, variety is a really important biological principle, and I've integrated into the my ketosis, nutritional ketosis protocol. And in fact, I firmly believe that people should not be in nutritional ketosis long term. That you do have to integrate a variety. That you do need carbohydrates. That you just and they have a day or two of the week where you have pretty high carbohydrates, maybe 100 grams. I mean, not 2, 3, 400 and simple carbohydrates and dangerous ones, but healthy carbohydrates. So that's an important component. And I personally take 4 different systemic enzymes, and I take a different one every day. So every day I'm alternating between one of them on a 4-day
that's
cycle.
excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. I got a few good ideas from you, like the serapeptidase, but
Thank
uh,
you.
so that was a
I get a
good
lot
one.
of good ideas from you, so I guess would go.
Now, interestingly, I was kind of surprised at the Orlando conference where we met. I gave my presentation, and one of the questions I typically ask the audience is, "Who here is taking flaxseed oil?" And I was shocked, almost fell off the stage when I found out that just this is a cancer conference that we're speaking at. Almost everyone there raised up their hand. I didn't figure it out until after I got off the stage, but it was because they were doing the Budwig protocol, which calls for
Right,
flaxseed oil.
right.
So I personally believe that that's a flawed strategy of not so much that the flax seeds are bad, but the oil is because it's refined, it's oxidized, and not as good. So you could do sprouted flax seeds and get the same amount of flaxseed oil, but it's not oxidized. So that would be my recommendation. And I don't,
Well,
I don't
and
think anyone should take flaxseed oil.
no, and I think the original Budwig protocol was that you grind your seeds every day.
Yeah.
So
Grinding, I used to do that, and I don't recommend it anymore. I recommend soak the seeds overnight.
soak them overnight. Okay.
Yeah, because there's some phytic acids and other enzyme inhibitors in there that tend to become deactivated with sprouting. And all of the flax seeds don't. I've never seen them sprout because they form this mucilaginous mixture that's really because of all the fiber in there, the lignans. But it does help, and I think it's a lot better. And they really go really good in a smoothie.
Yeah, it sounds good. I'll try it. I will try it.
Yeah. So, but what's your experience with the Budwig protocol? I mean, do you have a lot of people using that?
Not anymore. You know,
Oh,
in
no, really?
no,
Interesting.
no. See, I was surprised too at the Orlando conference. So, at the in the beginning, you know, in 2001, there really wasn't a lot out there. It was very hard to find any therapies at all. And if they were out there, they were the ones that had been around for a while, like Budwig and Gerson, um, and you know, I tried both. Um, I really learned to listen to my body. I didn't have any way to test back then or anything. It was just me, and I didn't even have a doctor until 2002. So
That
I just
was not a bad strategy.
that was not a strategy. I was looking for a natural doctor, and you know they were just
Yeah.
so far under the radar you couldn't find them, which is another reason I started the foundation and brought in Physician Arms so that I could find all these doctors and get them out there. So yeah, the Budwig diet I enjoyed for a while, and but I just never felt like it was. I never felt like it was doing anything.
Yeah, diet by itself, even if it's the best diet in the world, is not going to cure most cancers. It'll help. I mean, it'll cure some, but most, I would say, it's not going to be the magic bullet that everyone's looking for. It's
Yeah,
an important foundational component, but you need these other strategies, which is why we're interviewing you.
thank you. Yeah, I think when I did the Budwig, my platform at the time existed of the mind body, spirituality, the immune system stuff that I figured out I could do, which I think included acupuncture at the time. Um, diet, what my diet at the time was Patrick Quillen's Beating Cancer with Nutrition,
Mhm.
because it was my first step, my baby step there. Um, and then let's see, lifestyle changes, the rest, getting the rest, the sunshine. So the only thing I didn't have were targeted cancer therapies. So Budwig
Yeah,
was actually my first, and it doubled as a dietary item and a
sure.
targeted therapy.
Yeah, and your spiritual approaches, I don't know a term that you're, or a phrase that you're use a lot in the book is God is large and in charge. And
Yeah.
it seems that would be useful to address a lot of the anxiety surrounded with this
Oh, amen.
diagnosis. And anxiety is something that is a surefire bullet to help destroy your immune system. So that's a positive thought.
Yeah, and anxiety, all the negatives actually stimulate the part of the brain that creates the stress hormones. So they feed the cancer. But yeah, having a God, you know, I just recommend having a higher power, because there have you have got to have days where you can just hand it off and say, "You take it today. I can't deal with it." And also knowing, you know, my belief is that when I die, I'm going to, my soul is going on, is going to a very serene, beautiful place. So realizing that, I had absolutely no fear anymore about anything. It was like, okay, if I die, I'm going to heaven, God.
Yeah,
If I live,
and
I'll help people.
yeah, and having that and not being attached to the outcome, I think is another important component. So whether you pass away prematurely or you survive, you're fine with it either way. You know, it's that you're not in control, God is.
Yep, God is large and in charge.
Yes, indeed. Simple reminder. I like those simple phrases.
Me too. That one's in my brain all the time. That's another affirmation that's up all over. Still, I still have all my affirmations up after 16 years.
Well,
So,
that's good.
yeah.
So let's see. So, well, any other targeted therapies that you can think? I could think of
Oh
one
my
like,
gosh.
hyperbaric oxygen is
Yeah,
one, is an
HVAC.
alternative
Mm-hmm.
to that exercise with oxygen therapy. And I don't know if you've got any direct
EWOD.
experience. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what's referred to colloquially. And it's something I actually do 3 times a week because I have one at home, a device to do that with my peak exercise or peak
Peak
intensity exercise.
intensity.
Yeah. So I get confused with peak fasting. So
Your peak fasting is you fast for.
that's our definition of our sort of standardized form of intermittent fasting that essentially involves a restricting your calories to a 6 to 9 hour window a day, maybe 10 hours. So, and doing that on a regular basis is something I do most every day. And typically it's about 8 or 9 hours where I eat my calories. So
I've
that
been
that
doing
does.
that since I heard you in Orlando.
Have
So
you noticed any benefits?
I have. I feel much better. I feel a lot more
Yeah.
energy. Yeah, a lot more energy. I'm not sluggish hardly at
Because
all.
people can go on the nutritional ketosis diet, but if they're eating, they don't integrate that area, that window of fasting, may at least 12 and preferably 16 or 18 hours, then you don't seem to get the benefits. And it occurs in a fair number, surprisingly large number of people. So it's just a simple, it doesn't cost you a thing. You don't have to buy anything. In fact, in most cases, it's going to save you money because you're not eating as much food.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
in my book with the targeted therapies, I talk about a lot of affordable, inexpensive therapies you can do at home. Other targeted therapies I like poly MVA. It's a colloidal mineral alcoholic complex that crosses the blood-brain barrier, actually renourishes the cells at the brain at the cellular level and all the cells at the cellular level, and it's anti-cancer. So I really like that one. I like, as I mentioned, artemisinin and high C, the oxidative therapies, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I absolutely adore because again, it's flooding the body with oxygen and killing cancer.
Yeah,
Um,
cancer doesn't thrive well on high levels of oxygen typically.
yeah,
It's
and
it's it's really designed to survive in an anaerobic metabolism, and when you throw oxygen at it, it increases these oxidative free radicals, which is why vitamin C works because it creates hydrogen peroxide, which cancer does not like. It's another
right.
oxidative stress.
Right. And that's why the keto diet too, it's starving cancer because
Mhm.
cancer can't eat fat. It can
Well,
eat
most
carbs.
cancer cells are very clever and sophisticated. They do adapt. So if you have it for a while, they will adapt and learn to metabolize the same metabolic pathways. This is why you need these targeted approaches where you need this whole or variety of different therapies to kill. It's like you hit it when it's down. It's like it's very rare where in a fight or a MMA fight or a boxing match that one punch is going to do it. I mean, usually it's a barrage. You just got to keep on hitting them until you're successful. So and
Right.
that's what you do with the targeted therapies.
Yes. Speaking of uh, targeted therapies that are easy to take and not too expensive, there is a therapy out there called Ave Ultra. It's fermented wheat germ, and it used to come
I've
in
heard of that.
powdered form, and
Mhm.
patients had a really hard time getting it down. And now they have it in pill form. It's called Metatrol, and you take two a day. It's not a hardship to take. Selenium, another supplemental therapy that's not too expensive, and most cancer patients have a lack of vitamin D and they have a lack of selenium and iodine. And so those
Mhm.
three things are really good targeted therapies. Um,
Yeah, I love selenium. I take one from Selenio Excel, about 200 micrograms a day, because especially if you do sauna therapy, you tend to excrete it, so you have to be careful that you don't get low on it. But
right.
it increases glutathione, which is really an important metabolic
Yes.
antioxidant. So,
Yes. Another one.
and for women, it actually catalyzes the conversion of T3 to T4, so it can help if you're thyroid deficient.
Um, yeah. The Another great targeted therapy that's also anti stem cell is called modified citrus pectin, and it's
MCP.
MCP, and it's actually been proven to reverse cancer, cause cancer, go into remission, and stop metastatic cancer. So the brand I really like is Econugenics. In fact, that's the only one I know of that has the studies behind it. So that was a real good one. There are just so many. It's kind of like how do you choose? Um, Salicinium is a great targeted therapy. Um, they have that IV and oral. Uh, New Calm. Okay, so New Calm, let me talk about that for just a minute. It's a device, and the aspects of my platform, there are seven of them, and New Calm is it's almost a solution for every single aspect. So it's a set of headsets with acoustic neurolinguistics in the music, embedded in the music. You put some GABA cream on your carotid, and you have some pads that you put behind your ear that deliver microcurrents. And what it's scientifically patented to do is balance the autonomic nervous system. And so when the autonomic nervous system is out of balance, that's typically when we get sick. So you listen to this beautiful music. Close your, you got a eye shade to shield your visual stimulation, and you just lie down with it. And 20 minutes is worth 2 hours of rest, of sleep. But it basically just regulates your whole autonomic nervous system. It's brilliant. NASA uses it, and it works.
Great. So, I neglected to mention in your introduction that you actually were quite active in the corporate world before you came down with your breast cancer. That you were a marketing specialist at Anheuser-Busch, which is, I think, just been bought out by a European conglomerate,
Yes.
and a systems engineer for DEC, which is also bought out, I think, by Oracle.
Yep.
Uh, and so you were sort of essentially uh, uh, moved on to be a corporate information networking consultant for a Fortune 500, Fortune 100 company. So you were really active and really quite proficient in the business world before it all caught up to you. And maybe you can share your story from that perspective, because it was this success that you had in the business world that probably was a big con contributing factor to you developing the cancer.
Oh, so true. I really think balance in everything is a key, but I didn't learn that till I got sick. So I was quite active. I had an expense account. I was traveling all the time. I get home Friday night, do my laundry, clean the house, pay some bills, and leave Sunday. And so it was very, very busy. And when I got sick, I went to the doctor, and took them about 6 months to diagnose the dysfunctional immune syndrome. And they said, okay, we got a diagnosis for you, and told me what it was. And I said, well, great. What do I take? And they said, we don't have anything for that. And it shocked me. I didn't know that could happen, that the doctor wouldn't have an answer. So
Well,
that's
the sad reality is, even though they do have an answer, and they frequently do, most of the time they do, it rarely ever solves the problem.
it covers it up.
Yeah,
It's a Band-Aid.
it's
That's
like
and
hitting that idiot light on the dashboard you referenced earlier.
right. And I didn't figure that out till I looked at all the pills I was taking after about 8 months, and my copay on my medications was $600. And and I had a very good insurance company. So those were expensive drugs. And I was taking handfuls. And for every drug that I took, I got side effects. And then they give me another drug to cure the side effects. It was horrible. So that's when
But
I
the good
said
news
enough.
is, yeah, is that you never really address it, and you've continued to worsen, and then you eventually came out with the breast cancer about 10 years later. But you use the skill set that you developed, and I think this is a good story and a good strategy and model for others who are suffering similar. And again, virtually everyone watching this has either personal or knows someone that they are close to or love, or a family member who has this, is that you use the resources you had before, and you just switched, you stopped, you got out of that model, and you just committed your whole rest of your life to helping people with this, using the skills you acquired in business to do that.
Yes, I'm grateful for everything that I learned along the way. I don't think there are accidents in life. I think we're put exactly where we need to be to fulfill our soul's growth and destiny. So I took everything I learned in the business world, and that's how I created the platform. I was like, okay, I need a table of some sorts. I need to know what I'm doing. I've got to take all my knowledge and put it in something that makes sense to me. And I liked color and I liked pictures, so I was looking for a picture that had 7 colors that represented my aspects, and that's how I found the I used the little chakra outline person, and created the healing platform. But my goal is to help others, and it has been so wonderful and so fulfilling. And I love working with the doctors, and we educate them every year in the annual conference. We have a continuing medical education conference that's touted as the best, if not the best around for our alternative medicine. We teach the patients in a separate conference, same hotel, same time frame, different ballroom. But it's important for them to hear the doctors personally, to meet them, to listen to the different therapies that are available to them. And I get such a rewarding, fulfilling feeling. I don't think I lived before this. I don't think I lived before I got cancer. I think I actually kind of floated through life until then. And then it was, your ending is right in your face. So it kind of becomes very important to enjoy your life and live a great one.
Yes, indeed. So why don't you talk a bit more about this upcoming conference that's going to be in, is it Pasadena? I was in California somewhere.
It's in San Diego.
San Diego, okay.
Yes.
And it's for physicians. If you're a physician watching this and you want to learn more about this area, this is very important to go to. And it's also for patients. If you are a cancer survivor or you're new to the diagnosis of cancer.
Yeah, we have two separate conferences. The Integrative Oncology Conference is the conference for physicians, and it's the 15th annual this year. We're very happy to say, 15th annual conference. We will have 3 full days, each with 3 organic meals available as part of your admission. Um, they're full days. They're very, very robust agendas, and we are sorry you can't make it. I'm still going to try and talk you into it, but
Yeah,
um,
well,
then the
it's
other.
really hard for me to get there. It's a 15-hour round trip, and it's just hard to
Hi.
integrate into the schedule. So,
Okay, well, we'll work on it. So the other one is you notice I don't take no. That's why I think that's why I'm
yeah.
alive. They told me I was going to die, and I was like, oh yeah, we'll see. God knows, I don't know. So the other conference is the 9th annual Answers for Cancer Summit. Now they are separate conferences, so we don't allow patients in the doctor's conference. They're there to learn, and we want them to have the relaxation and the networking and the environment where they can learn the best. The patients are in a separate ballroom, but the same time frame, and we do have the doctors come over and present to them. So they get to see the doctors, but they don't disturb them. On the other hand, the patients get an environment that they can best thrive in. They can network, compare notes. Um, they're not concerned about getting to this doctor to ask him questions, and
Do you
yeah.
have a support group for patients? Have you coordinated something like that?
We do have a support group. We're starting up again. We shut it down for a while we were in transition to a new computer system, and then we had, the typical software problems, and we just are getting it back together now. It's the Patient Survivor Center. We call it the Chrysalis Group for the rebirth, the blossoming of the butterfly, and it will have a virtual uh, bulletin board and a chat room, and we'll have a library with all the medical references, different therapies, different books that they can read from different authors. I'd love to get your book in there
Mhm.
in the virtual library. And so I'm very serious about supporting patients because there were very few survivors in 2001 when I got diagnosed that I could find. So
Is there a charge for this?
no,
Okay, good.
the charge for the seminar, the
No, no, no,
conference.
no. Charge for the support group.
No, it's free.
Okay, and how do people get there again?
Well, write me, Annie, at bestanswerforcancer.org.
Okay,
And yeah, we're
I'll take the
constructing it
name.
right now, so we're only in the first revision.
Okay, good. So that is a big important part of this is the social support. Because most of the time, and I would say the majority of the cases, it's a battle because the friends and family are disagreeing what your strategy is because all the conventional medical physicians are claiming you're crazy for even considering this, and you need to take the
Yeah.
expensive drugs that are not going to solve the problem that they get 50% of as a commission as a solution.
Yeah. I tell patients what I experienced, and I say, my family and friends were frantic wanting me to do, you know, what everybody else does, the surgery, chemo, radiation. And I said, you know what? If I do what you want me to do and I die, I'll be pissed. I'm going to come back and haunt you. But if I do what I want to do and I die, well, then that was my choice. And I'm asking you to support my choice.
Yeah,
So,
good strategy. All right, so we'll have links to the conference because by the time this is up on the website. There'll still be plenty of time to register for it and get your tickets and go. But the other, if you can't or are unable to for whatever reason, just the book, still the book. Why don't you talk a little bit about your book?
yeah, the book is called The Healing Platform, and the subtitle is Build Your Own Cure, because there is the opportunity for each of us to cure ourselves, I believe. I think we're all individuals, and therefore our answer for cancer should be tailored to us. I should have a unique answer. I'm a snowflake, totally different from the next person. So why should I do what everybody else is doing? So the book actually talks about how I got sick, and you should see parallels if you are sick. You should see parallels in your life. It helps you examine your entire life And then it goes into the platform, and every chapter is a different healing modality, like spirituality, um, mind body medicine, uh, immunologics, excuse me, nutrition, detox, lifestyle changes, and then targeted cancer therapies. And each one of those chapters is color coded, so you can easily go to that chapter to look up a reference. In addition, each modality, when you go into detox, there's a workbook all the way through. So it's an interactive guide. You can actually you're actually challenged at the end of each chapter to write your thoughts, your experiences down to help you determine what your diseases are. The book is really easy to follow. I get calls all the time from patients just saying, "Thank you, you gave me hope." And thank you. There's such good information here, and yet, I was frustrated at first because I wanted you to tell me to do what to do, but telling me that I'm an individual said, "Oh, I've got to do my homework." So it's been really rewarding. I understand patients really enjoy it, and I encourage you to get it, whether you have cancer or not. Buy it, read it, pass it on. Chronic disease, I think, is a precursor to cancer, and cancer is a chronic disease. So you don't have to have cancer to be in danger of getting cancer.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today and sharing
Thank you.
us the wisdom that you've acquired from your challenging journey and showing and giving people hope that there is something that positive that they can do that doesn't rely on the conventional model. So I'm sure we'll catch up soon, if not before November, when I'm sure you'll be at Dr. Cowden's ACMM conference in November in
Absolutely.
Orlando.
We support each other. So, yes,
Great.
Lee's an old friend.
All right. Well, great.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.